Morning everyone. So this morning, I guess Melissa asked me to do a bit more of a technical presentation, and the job I've chosen is the Adelaide Oval, and it's a particular area of the Fig Plaza. But this is certainly a unique scenario, so I'm not saying this is what we need to do for everywhere, but what I'll talk through is, I guess, how we've dealt with around these large mature figs and some of the sort of issues and considerations that we've had. So I guess on really big projects like Adelaide Oval, there are a lot of decisions made from a very early stage, which I don't think they never think about what that actually means on the ground, and especially when it comes to trees. And this project had little regard for some big trees. As you know, went back to Parliament to remove more trees. So we were sort of left, and yes, we did the master plan, but the layers on the master plan that aren't shown are that there's a giant fire truck route going around the entire perimeter, and there's 10 metre high concrete walls everywhere, and then you're sort of left with this tiny little area. But I mean, great opportunity, but it's I think it's very different to a greenfield site, and what I'm going to show is how we had to work within some really tight scenarios. So these are the big Moreton Bay figs, and they're all over 100 years old, and all of them significant and regulated. The existing paths that were through the parklands were probably a metre wide. So then they we did a walkthrough with the MFS, and they're talking about a 6 metre wide path that they would like, then a set down area. And then we're looking at the crowd numbers, and that's sort of doubling it. So you can see that this has been untouched for a very long time, and these figs are in great condition. And this is sort of our work site. So looking at a blow up of Fig Plaza, you can see we've got a 5-way intersection of paths going around all of these trees. Then if I overlay it with the path, now this was our ideal scenario of how we'd like to transition into these paths, and then overlaying this fire truck route. Now, the first time we showed this fire truck route to our arborist, he actually walked off the job and said, "I want nothing to do with this job." And he quit, and he had already worked with us for a year on this project and done all of the tree assessments. So we went back to the government and we said, this is a really big issue. Like, this is not going to be a cheap solution to get this fire truck route through. And it's not just any fire truck. Obviously for the stadium, they need the biggest, and a lot of them. So we then got a new arborist, and Dean Nicole, if anyone knows. And Dean was great. So the first thing we did was obviously plot the TPZs. Now, they mean nothing really when you start to see, right, we couldn't do anything if we worked within the TPZs and set them as exclusion zones. Then we had to look at the stormwater, and the engineers have said that actually in the 1 in 50 year flood that the water all needs to move across here, so we shouldn't be changing the levels too much here. It's like, one more thing. And then we found out that North Adelaide hadn't upgraded their stormwater in 50 years, so we needed to put a 900mm pipe coming through here. You can sort of just see that. So we've got all these sort of issues, and then it's how do we come up with a solution? Now, the first one that the arborist said was, right, let's do a suspended slab, so around the whole way, and let's do screw piles. And the cost came in, and it was astronomical, and we weren't even sure how we would get the rig to drive the piles in around here. So then the next option was, all right, let's look at a permeable paver. We probably should have looked at that in the first instance, but people were concerned about how we'd actually get the compaction and the results. Yes, we looked at the standards a lot, but I would say in this job, we really just worked every day with the arborist on site, and it was a much more pragmatic approach, I think, and that's great for the greenfield sites and where you have space, but we just didn't have space, and to be able to get the machines and the access in there, we had to almost put that aside for a little bit. So what we came up with is, and we used the Abri Trihex paver, was really looking at, the course, a geogrid and a geofab to kind of stabilise everything, then our layer of aggregate, then another geofab, and then our sort of 8mm screenings. Now, the really tricky part, and this is the part that I think everyone really struggled, was that the arborist had said that we're not allowed to compact this subgrade at all, and that all we can do is take off that top organic matter, so the ivy. Now, again, the engineers pretty much said we want nothing to do with this pavement as well. So Oxigen was sort of left here with a job that no one wanted to put their name on. No one wanted to be part of it. We had Lend-Lease sort of screaming at us, telling us, you know, we need to get this job done. Dipty saying what's happening. And so this is where we had to really work everyone and use some clever language that I think no one's taking responsibility, but everyone is aware and we're working together with the project. I think the big thing that changed on this profile was this depth, and I'll show you some photos, but what it meant was that even though ideally I think we had 150 mil, this grew to almost 600 mil in some areas, and I'll show you the photos. So one of the first jobs was just, you know, we started to get the air vac in and see where we found roots, and they were everywhere. So with fig trees, the top 600 mil is where all the figs are, all the roots are, and we didn't find any that deep, but there's a lot of them and they're very fine. So this is the size of the stormwater pipe that we were trying to get through, and that sort of, we managed to make that one work. But then as we started to take the ivy off, so it's not a great photo, but you can see this layer of matted root here. And everyone was starting to have a panic attack, like how can we just put pavers straight down on this? And it was really tricky. So what we looked to actually do was, let's actually build this up a little bit more with some organic topsoil to cover over these roots. And you can see this was a photo that I was getting every morning, a photo from Lend-Lease. You know, we found more roots, and I don't think I slept for probably 2 months worrying about these trees. But it was interesting. So most days, Dean and I would go down on site, and although these roots would look, you know, very mangled, and the temptation was to cut them back clean and sort of make them look nice, Dean always said, don't touch them at all. He said, it's just, you know, people want to see clean cut roots, but if you've already damaged them, which we have, don't try and cut them back any further. Just cover them up and then just keep watering the tree. So you can see we're starting to now, we've cleared off the top of the ivy, and then what we're looking to do is actually raise the whole platform. So we're starting to bench up around the sides. And then here again, you know, just when we thought we were getting out of the roots, there's more roots. But you can see what we look to do is where we were doing inside, I guess around a tree, which was in an island, we would use a 10 mil steel edge. So we would roll the steel edge with pegs. And that was so that we didn't have to pour any footings around the tree. So, I mean, I think the landscape contractor had a pretty tough time rolling this, but it's actually stayed true for 3 years now. So it's just mild steel, and we've got 600 mil deep pegs, and we've jammed it all in. Then on the outside, we've actually had to pour concrete footing. So we really wanted that really strong edge restraint for the outsides. And what we did is we raised up that berm so that we didn't have to excavate at all for the concrete edge. And so you can see we've got the geofab and the geogrid, and then we're starting to put the screenings down and building it up. And this is where everyone was starting to get quite nervous as well, because we literally had sort of areas of 600 mil screening, and it was sort of like walking on marshmallows. And as it sort of came in, it was more and more and more, and they had to keep buying more. And John Michelin at Abbury, he was fantastic on this job. He kept reassuring us that once we get that top layer of pavers in, it's all going to be fine. So I went out the next day, they started to lay some pavers, and I thought, something looks wrong. And they'd laid every single one in different angles. And they'd they were getting quite excited how quickly they were going down. So we made them rip every single paver up and do them in the correct way. I mean, they've learnt their lesson and they haven't done it again, so it's good. But even when we're walking across these, they were still very spongy, and obviously we hadn't compacted anything under the subgrade, so we were quite nervous. And John just said, just wait, just don't compact anything, wait to get every single paver in, every single header, and then let's go over with a light whacker. So in the end, we put them all in, we've gone over with a light whacker, and yeah, they were completely true and flat. And we did our fire truck testing, so that was a nervous day as well to watch the fire truck go over, but they've been down now for almost 3 years, and I think the only sort of level changes I've seen are slightly around the header course, and then also the junction where the fire truck has gone from hot mix onto the pavers, but they could easily be topped up. As far as the infill, we just use the same 8mm screenings, and then it gets blow-evac'd probably once a week by the Stadium Management Authority, but we haven't seen any issues at all. We've had a look at photos from the figs before and after, and I'd say it looks like they're starting to improve. They really got hammered during the construction of stage 1 when they built the actual stadium, but we certainly haven't made the conditions worse, and Dean thinks that they're coming a lot better. We did put a lot of new irrigation on the figs, and what Dean's advice was that the permeable paving is not just great for the water, but it's that aeration that the soils need, and because the figs are really surface-bound trees, that they just need air getting to the soil the whole time. We've never seen any ponding or puddles on this, and yeah, I think it's worked extremely well. So you can see you're starting to get a little bit of debris in there, but it's really pretty minimal. So the next one I'd like to show you is we had a giant hot mix car park. Now we effectively got the brief to move the car park that was next to Mem Drive to out the back, and this is where if they're having rolling stones, they set up, they need to bring the biggest trucks and move in, and it's where the wicket transporter goes, and so it's effectively a giant road. What we then wanted to do is how do we soften these car parks? So one, we got the grading, so we've got 2 sort of valleys where we're going to plant trees, and you can see we're just doing giant concrete pit. Ideally we would have loved to do permeable paving either side, but it just wasn't in our budget, and this job did have a very tight budget. We then didn't have the money to put ag drains as well in here, but what we did is just a little overflow pipe so that there's a high end and a low end, and you can see so the water would come in here, would sort of come in the whole valley, and then there'd be one sump at the end of each one. So extremely simple, extremely cost effective. We would have had to have a sump there anyway, and all we're doing is, I guess, paying for a little bit of, a deeper concrete wall, and then a nicer sort of sandy loam in that middle part. Now this one I was curious to see how it would work, because you can see we are compacting, the crap out of it to the side. It is rubble 300mm thick, and then our trees only have, it's about 1800 wide, that central trench. And so, yeah, we're really interested to know, are the trees going to go well? And so this is them when they went in 2 years ago, and we've got some permeable paving there, but it's not much. So as far as the actual area for the trees, they're surrounded by 2 roads. This is a photo yesterday, and you can see in 2 years they've pretty much tripled in size. And I've compared that to other trees we've planted with irrigation, but not, I guess, rain gardens, same species around the oval, and these ones are by far the quickest growing and the healthiest, and they just look extremely lush. So I think to me this sort of, and I've been sort of testing it out whether, it's water or whether it's nutrients or whether it's soil type, but I think water is by far the biggest factor for tree growth. These have compacted rubble either side, but we're giving them a lot of water, and yeah, I guess in my projects that I've worked on, water seems to be the biggest thing by a country mile, relating it then back to tree growth and how it works. So yeah, I was really pleased to see this. Yeah. So yeah, that's I guess, 2 little projects that we've done at Adelaide Oval as far as water and working with permeable paving.
Thanks very much.
It certainly annoys me when we get briefs, and I know we have to write water sensitive urban design, but as a landscape architect, we should be doing it on every job. And yeah, as Melissa said, it shouldn't be this extra over thing. And these 2 things that we did probably cost less than any other thing that we could have done. So as far as a cost benefit, it's great. And if every time I see a car park, or a big open space which doesn't have water sensitive urban design, you just wonder why it's been designed like that, because it's going to cost us more in the long term. And the value of trees, if you go on the Heart Foundation website and look at the value of trees and open space, the economic uplifts are huge. So yeah, it's certainly, I think it should be more integrated into landscape architecture and civil engineering and just any design really. So yeah, that was sort of my take-home point from the last one. Yeah.
So one at the back and then one here.
A statement from your add-on comment. It's good to see that your comment then about seeing a car park and being baffled when you don't see water sensor design in it. There's a leading South Australian engineer in water sensor design, happens to be sitting in the room, who made that statement 7 years ago, and it's been gospelly reproduced over and over again. So to see a landscape architect come to almost the identical statement, I think says wonders what Mel was talking about as the two poles coming together. Just a query with that car park. When I happened on it, it was great. I loved seeing, not knowing it was there, but happened on it and saw it and could picture some of what was going on. Is it a proper rain garden design, as an engineer would call it, or is it a wet garden bed?
It's very simple, yeah. So fills up, there's no ag drains, and then literally just PVC pipe to allow the overflow to go to the next one.
And so wet, normal
wet,
backfill rather
and
than
then
any volume any special...
What we did use, it's called Mount Compass Oval 20, but it's a sort of quite a sandy lime, but it actually holds the water as well. And we've been working with Mount Compass sand and lime because we've had so many failures with our rain gardens because we put too much sand in there. And so we're trying to find a soil which can actually hold that moisture better. They're actually looking to mine a locally sourced product, which is like a wetting agent as well, a more natural wetting agent. So yeah, it's slightly different sandy profile, but that is something that we're working through now.
Because it's performing great visually from a garden bed perspective, but I'm intrigued to know, coming from the engineering side of the water quality improvement benefits that we can...
Yeah, I don't think this one wouldn't be giving major water quality benefits. It's really tree benefit.
And it's great to work together and find
Absolutely,
that right middle ground. Keep working on that middle ground.
I have another question here.
And did you calculate the volume of soil that these trees have access to? And second part of that is, are you expecting these trees to grow to maturity?
Well, that's what, and that's what I'm really keen to see is that do they then, do they get root bound under here, and they're stunted. That said, when we dug up the existing asphalt that was here, and there are big plains, we found a lot of tree roots under there as well. So I guess, what Dean the arborist was saying, that as the asphalt deteriorates over time, it lets more moisture through and it lets more air, and you will get the roots going under there. We'll wait and see. I mean, plains are probably the toughest tree that we have as far as a deciduous one, so I'll be interested, yeah. But after 2 years growth, I'm pretty impressed, yeah.